Listen, guys, the entire time, the entirety of this entire thing, since the mid 90s, the East Coast has, for the most part, been blamed for this very specific thing, guys, right? We're referring to, unfortunately, the unfortunate demise of the rapper Tupac Shakur, okay? To the point where they instantly kind of went after Biggie for this right here, guys. Right? If you were there, you understood the tension in New York in the 90s. You can cut with a knife, guys. It was crazy, right? I mean, so listen, what happened that night, basically, Orlando Anderson, he meets somewhere in Vegas. He sees Tupac. He sees, Suge. And they get into some type of kerfuffle, like in the entranceway. Orlando Anderson basically ends up on the floor, being basically stomped out by Suge and Tupac. And instead of basically taking that L, what he did was proceed to get into a vehicle with his uncle, right? And, how about this? That was the story up until now. I haven't actually checked it out. We're going to watch it together. But apparently they found the person who at least had something to do with it. To my knowledge, at least, I think to everyone's knowledge, Orlando Anderson was the person who actually, handled that issue. Guys, you get what I'm saying here? So instead of taking it, he went and grabbed the firearm and basically got active in a sense, guys. But let's go and check it out. Let's see what this takes us, guys. Ooh.
My name's Jason Johansson, and I'm the lieutenant with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And my goal here today is to walk you through our investigation and what led us to the indictment of Dwayne Davis, also known as Keefe D, for the murder of Tupac Shakur. This case has been reviewed by our team and detectives for over 2.5 decades.
Right.
And ultimately, our persistence in this investigation has paid off. Let me walk you through a timeline of events that as we know them right now. Prior to September 7th of 1996, as we all know, Tupac Shakur was an artist who was signed with Row Records. And that Row Records and its CEO, Marion Suge Knight, were closely affiliated with the mob criminal street, and that they had an ongoing feud with the Southside Compton. Dwayne Davis was the leader and caller of the Southside Compton. And both of these operated out of the Southern California area of Compton. On the night of September 7th of 1996, Tupac Shakur, along with Suge Knight and members of their entourage, which include members of mob, came to Vegas to attend the Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Members of the Southside Compton, which included Dwayne Davis, along with his nephew Orlando Anderson, were also in attendance at the same event. As both were leaving the fight, members of Row Records spotted Orlando Anderson near an elevator bank inside the MGM, and at that time they began to kick and push him near that elevator bank. I will now show you hotel security footage, as many of you have already seen, related to this incident.
Right.
And on this incident, you will see Tupac Shakur, who's wearing a shiny satiny shirt, along with Marion Suge Knight, who's a large man in a brown suit, Orlando Anderson. Following this incident, you'll see hotel security intervene.
Hey guys, because of YouTube community guidelines, we're going to have to kind of blur this out, this section at least of the video. But I'm sure, guys, we've all seen it. If you guys have followed this case, you've seen this, or you can just find it online. But we're going to have to specifically block out the altercation here.
And then they will leave the area of the. Little did anyone know that it is this incident right here that would ultimately lead to the retaliatory and death of Tupac Shakur. Following this incident, Tupac and Suge Knight both left the MGM to make their way to a post-party, which was to occur at a local nightclub. At the same time, word had spread amongst members of the Southside Compton of what had occurred inside the MGM, and then That's when Dwayne Davis began to devise a plan to obtain a and retaliate against Suge Knight and Mr. Shakur for what occurred inside the hotel against Mr. Anderson. After Davis obtained a, he entered into a white Cadillac along with Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, and Orlando Anderson. Based on our investigation, this is where we know they were seated.
Oh yeah, he's going to be completely charged, bro. Yeah, he's completely. Yeah, he's the last one left alive. Yeah, you're gonna take all of it.
At some point in time,
all of it.
As they were in the white Cadillac, Mr. Davis took the gun that he had obtained and provided it to the passengers in the rear seat of the vehicle. As they were as they were driving west on Flamingo Road near Koval, they located the black BMW, which was driven by Suge Knight, and in the passenger seat was Tupac Shakur. And as they turned around, they pulled up near the passenger side of that vehicle and immediately began at Mr. Knight and Mr. Shakur. Following that, the white Cadillac fled the area southbound on Koval, and after our officers arrived on scene, Tupac was later transported to the University Medical Center, where he is treated medically and died approximately 6 days later on September 13th. My section handled this investigation from its onset and for a short amount of time. And within a short amount of time, what we knew was that we were working at investigation where our victims, our witnesses, and our suspects were all from Southern California and not local to Las Vegas. Within the first few months of the investigation, our detectives knew most of the information I just briefed you on. However, we never had the necessary evidence to bring this case forward and present it for criminal charges.
So
as time went on, this case had been reviewed multiple times by different investigators assigned to my section.
And a lot of documentaries have been digging through this forever. Like, I'm surprised that it's taken this long to kind of get any type of like solid information, any solid leads on exactly who was responsible.
But it wasn't until 2018 that this case was reinvigorated as additional information came to light related to this. Specifically, Dwayne Davis's own admissions to his involvement in this investigation that he provided to numerous different media outlets. In our,
I mean, listen, I appreciate you self-snitching. I appreciate that a whole lot, sir. Right? I think the West, for the sake of the 90s, they owe us an apology, right? Because to my knowledge, this guy was alive in his time, hearing and watching the East Coast and West Coast issues just, proliferating, right? To the point where Biggie was deleted because of what allegedly he had something to do with, and the entire East Coast was basically blamed for, the demise of Tupac. Can we get an apology? Just for the sake of the 90s, bro? How about that, guys, right? RP Biggie, guys. RP Tupac, obviously, too, guys. But, guys, I was here. I was in this. This right here just brings back all the memories. And then just to find out that we lost Biggie because of... for what, bro?
Section, we knew at this time that this was likely our last time to take a run at this case, to successfully solve this case and bring forth a criminal charge. It was at that time that this case was assigned to Cliff Mogg, a detective within my homicide section. And over the last 5 years, my section worked closely, hand in hand with the Clark County District Attorney's Office, and followed a systematic investigative plan over the last 5 years. We've conducted countless interviews and corroborated numerous facts that were not only consistent with the crime scene on the night of the incident, but also corroborated and were consistent with the sequence of events that night. This ultimately led to us procuring a search warrant, which was executed at Mr. Davis's residence in Henderson,
July?
Nevada. And following the execution of that search warrant,
I think it was his wife's.
in close coordination with the
place.
district attorney's office, this case was presented to the grand jury, which ultimately led to Davis being indicted on charges of
An arrest and indictment in the of legendary rapper Tupac Shakur. Really, investigators, they're going into stunning detail about how his is a retaliatory an investigation in which they knew soon after of Tupac around September of 1996 the details of, but a case that went cold until 2018, and now one that is headed potentially for a conviction.
They showed this surveillance video and they said this is a moment, this altercation, that ultimately led to that moment on September 7th, 1996, on the Las Vegas Strip, where someone pulled up, multiple people, in a white Cadillac, they believe, and shot into the passenger side of Tupac Shakur's vehicle. Ultimately, him days later, he died in a hospital. But I think people are in disbelief today. Fans of his music, people who knew him, his family as well. They've carried this hurt for so long. And now knowing that police have arrested someone, also they said there were 3 other suspects, but all of them are deceased.
Yeah, and the arrest.
Yeah, and that means he's going to take 100% of whatever comes to him because of it.
Arrest they made, you're looking at the mugshot there on your screen. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a 60-year-old man who they describe, investigators, as the head of a rival that had issues with Tupac and his cohort. Let's discuss these latest details with CNN's Josh Campbell, and also with us, CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson. Josh, first to you. There was a lot of detail in what we just heard from investigators there, going over all the evidence that they collected.
Absolutely. And, this is where the timeline of this comes into play here so important. We know that after Tupac Shakur left a boxing match, it was a white Cadillac that pulled up alongside his vehicle. Shakur was in the car with Suge Knight whenever those rang out. Now, interestingly enough, Dwayne Davis, the suspect who has now been charged here, indicted in Nevada, he gave public statements. This is something that the officer alluded to there shortly, saying some of his own comments are being used here now as evidence, particularly if you look back, for example, in 1998. Davis gave an interview to BET saying he was inside that other car. He said he was in the front seat. He claimed that the actually rang out from the back seat. He refused to publicly name who else might be in that car, saying that that's the code of the street, that he didn't want to, run amiss, I guess, of any of his cohorts there in the. But there was this question about.
Guys, we need to get over that code of the street thing. And just honestly, if you're doing something terribly wrong to society, you probably shouldn't be free, bro. But I get it. Apparently, let's get it.
Run amiss, I guess, of any of his cohorts there in the. But there was this question about, okay, so you're there. What other role did you have? Interestingly, we also just heard as the prosecutor talked about the law here as it applies, he said you don't have to actually be the person to pull in order to be charged with in the state of Nevada. So we start to see these elements start to shape up. If he was in the vehicle as he claimed, and that actually plays into the law that you don't have to pull the trigger to also be charged with. Police believe that he was, as they described the caller here, the person who devised this plan to retaliate against Shakur and ultimately lead to this.
So here's the thing, guys. I'm not going to go ahead and say that he was a shot caller, even though apparently he was like the leader of this, right? I think it was a guy's pride for basically catching kind of, hands and feet, right? I think it was kind of that. It was a pride. This was a purely prideful, spur of the moment thing. I don't think this was orchestrated or anything. But if Nevada has a law that says if you do something crazy in a car, you're in there. It's you too, right? I wonder if that works for everyone, including like police departments, but probably not. But either way, the point is that, guys, I'm glad that the case is kind of coming to completion after all of this time again, because I think it literally just brings me back to the point where, of knowing we were blamed pretty crazily for all of this, right, in the 90s, guys. And I mean this, guys. And to the point where we had this huge East Coast, West Coast thing. Biggie Smalls is told never to come to Cali because he did it. He had something to do with it. He orchestrated it. When in all actuality, it was someone from the West Coast who did that. But all right, listen. You guys all have an absolutely amazing day and enjoy your day thoroughly.